Right, 22 February 2024, and today I want to quickly look at what is happening in the Zimbabwe military, and this is something that is being reported very, very widely around the country, and I want to give some insight into what is happening now and what is going to be happening within the next few months, and in fact within the next few years, because this is going to develop within the next 2 to 3 years. And the particular issue I want to look at here is the movement of generals within the Zimbabwe military. So there is a newspaper called the NewsHawks, and they've been reporting a lot about the military over the past 6 months. And when I looked at the stories, there's not really much in there that shows what is happening in the military. If people are being moved or being promoted and being demoted, whether that has got an impact or not. But this week's developments, which is the firing of the 3 generals, so the 3 generals were fired this week. I cannot say fired, but demoted once again. Remember, we talked about the other military generals who were, or senior commanders, who were fired after their soldiers ran away when it was raining. This week, we've got 3 other generals who were fired or who were demoted. So you can go and have a look at the NewsHawks, but the 3 are Major General Hlangani Dube, Major General Paul Chima, and Major General John Mpande. So the firing of these generals is said to have been done by the new commander of the Zimbabwe National Army, Anselm Sanyatwe. And yesterday, the spokesperson, or I don't know what Charamba's job is in Zimbabwe government, whatever he's doing now, the guys who are speaking from Mnangagwa, they warned journalists against talking about things that are happening in the military, because those are state security issues. And the reason why they're saying this is because there is an attempt by Mnangagwa to go for a 3rd term. And as you are aware, there has been a long-standing rumor that during the coup which removed Mugabe, there was an agreement between General Chiwenga and Mnangagwa that Mnangagwa will serve 1 term and then he will hand over to General Chiwenga. But then he didn't do that. Mnangagwa didn't hand over to General Chiwenga. And I think I covered that story in great detail in the past. There's also in the past been attempts to remove Mnangagwa, include through an attempted coup by some generals, most of them who have died or who have been replaced or who have been resigned or retired by Mnangagwa. So when I look at this story and the temperature that it's raising, which is in the NewsHawks, it's all related to the 3rd term bid by Mnangagwa and the fact that the military, and when I say the military, you must understand who is the military in Zimbabwe. The guys in the military are very strong. So most people don't understand, and I think I have to keep going back to what I said in the past, that the military is permanent and the president is temporary. So when a military makes a plan, they make a 30-year plan, and the president makes a 10-year plan. So where a president makes a 5-year plan, the military makes a 10-year plan, and so forth. So in the military of Zimbabwe, there are very strong guys at the bottom who are coming up, and then also at the top, there are very strong people who've got a plan, and the plan that they've got is not the same as the plan that Mnangagwa has got. So right now, Mnangagwa thinks he's in control of the army and all their plans, but there are people within the military that also have their strategy that does not align with Mnangagwa. So you've got 2 strategies: the one that Mnangagwa thinks is pushing, and the one that is being pushed by people that are not in Mnangagwa's circle. So people who are saying, in 10 years' time, where are we going to be? What are we going to be doing? The scenario of Chamisa, if Chamisa gets in, what happens? What happens if this thing happens? So the scenarios that you have, the one that you have seen in public with the politicians, and the one that the military has got, the strong guys in the military are not the same. They're different. And Mnangagwa's push for a third term is disturbing the plans of other people. Some very, very strong people are being disturbed by Mnangagwa's plans for a third term. So the military guys, or the powerful military guys, do not want Mnangagwa to go for a third term. And this is clear. That is why Mnangagwa has made some contingency plans. So, for example, the appointment of Valerio Sibanda and his son into positions in the military. But there are even more powerful people behind in the military who've got their own plans. And those plans, they will soon be revealed. So, as you see that Mnangagwa is going to the end of his second term. So, he basically has 4 years left. That is Mnangagwa. And those 4 years, the last part of those 4 years is going to be lame duck. No one is going to be listening to ED anymore. However, what you are seeing with, for example, Mohadi saying 2030 Mnangagwa is an attempt to test the temperature, to see what is going to happen, who is going to say what, who in the military is going to make moves with regards to that. But my belief is that the military of Zimbabwe, the guys in the military who are very strong, are not interested in Mnangagwa's third term. And I also believe that, and I've said this on a number of occasions, that there is a third force in Zimbabwe, a third force made up of very powerful people in business, military, and politics. First, they have removed Chamisa, and the next person to be removed will be Mnangagwa. And this is going to be used as an excuse to remove Mnangagwa, this third term bid. Even if Mnangagwa is not planning it, already everyone thinks Mnangagwa wants to go for a third term. The popularity of Mnangagwa has plunged or plummeted within the past few months. After the election, with the land actions that Mnangagwa has taken, no one likes Mnangagwa. Even in ZANU-PF, the guys in ZANU-PF, the majority of them no longer like Mnangagwa, and they don't see Mnangagwa as someone with a plan to take the Zimbabwe to the next level. So let's look at this story in detail and what the NewsHawks is saying here. They are saying there was corruption, and the corruption is with regards to houses, and the amount involved is 40 million US dollars, and there was inflation of prices of houses that were bought for these generals and for their friends, and the junior soldiers were not catered for. And then after these guys were fired, I've given you their names. Then Valerio stepped in, General Valerio Sibanda stepped in and saved them from being fired immediately. So there is an attempt here to spin, to say that something is being done about corruption in the army. I don't think that the guys in the military are being so corrupt. There is no money in the Zimbabwe military. If you're talking of 40 million, that is nothing. The cost of moving tanks for South Africa in the DRC during the last operation, just the cost of moving tanks was 1 billion. What we call residual equipment. It was 1 billion. The lady who was involved in that scandal, it was actually in the courts. It was 1 billion just to move the tanks, and it was done by one of the wives of the generals here in South Africa. This 40 million, it's not like the houses were not bought. So you can see that houses were bought. I don't know why houses cost so much in Zimbabwe. They cost a lot. But this is not the issue here. The issue that you're seeing is that there are a lot of movements in the army. People are being fired, people are being moved, people are being replaced. And there's instability in the Zimbabwe military. It's not stable. And also there are other actors who are not in the military who are acquiring weapons. So I want to take you to a story that is in the H Metro newspaper today. And I've covered this story last year. There was some guns that were imported and they were intercepted at the Beitbridge border. And these guns were imported by someone called Guguletu Mabena, and they were linked to Nelson Chamisa through an operation which was announced by Owen Mudha Ncube, which was called Operation Lighthouse. You remember I covered that story at that time. And Magaya was searched for those weapons. My sources gave me that story when it was actually happening in the way. And tens of intelligence and security doing that operation. So it turns out that those guns, that case has been dropped in court. So today, if you go and look at the Metro newspaper, you see that that court case against Leonard Matambo has been dropped. But there are other people who are involved, so I don't know what has happened to those people. So my thinking is that there are other actors now who've got arms or who've got small arms, like my AK-47 and little guns, all these robberies that we're seeing. People are basically, and I've said in the past, collecting money so that they've money to carry out certain tasks. So at first they were robbing those money changers, business people who keep money in their houses. So there are people that have got guns or who have got the capacity to carry out a small operation which can disrupt the situation in the country. And this is what I'm talking about when I talk of the third force, because obviously the military guns will be well controlled, and there will be need for someone else to create their own cache or to have their own weapons. But basically what I'm saying here is the actions being taken by Mnangagwa, first pushing the third term, and at the same time destabilizing the army by making continuous and uncoordinated changes, is disrupting the military. But at the same time, the guys in the military who are strong, who are at the back, because that these guys will be the military, the ones I talked about in the beginning, over their own strategy, they're starting to get even more worried that Mnangagwa is eventually going to succeed. And you might see them making a move before the time when they were supposed to make that move on ED, because obviously this is unconstitutional, what ED is planning to do. And that amendment is coming. The amendment for Mnangagwa to have more terms is going to come, given what they call the Rwanda model. Mnangagwa is an admirer of the Rwanda model, where Kagame is now going to go for the 4th term. And Mnangagwa wants to do the same. He thinks he's the only person that can rule the country. But I believe that there are people, and very, very reasonable people, and very strong people in the Zimbabwe National Army who will not allow Mnangagwa to go for a 3rd term. They will not allow him. And they'll have to act if Mnangagwa was to try to go for a 3rd term. So the 3rd term is the most dangerous thing that ED can try to do. The next best thing that ED can do would be to place General Valerio in a position. But I don't know how he's going to do it, because he has now put back Mohadi in his position. So that means he will have to remove Mohadi, or he has to remove Chiwenga. I've given you the permutations in the past, that Chiwenga is not going to walk into the presidency. So is Chiwenga the guy who's going to launch against Mnangagwa or the other people? My belief is that there are actually other stronger people behind the scenes. When I went to Zimbabwe, I got the sense that although Mnangagwa appears strong, he is constrained somehow. There is other people that are stronger behind the scenes who are not directly under Mnangagwa's control. So I have mentioned that in the past, that I believe that there is another set of people that are actually more strategic and much stronger than the team that is around Mnangagwa. And I don't believe that Mnangagwa is the strongest person. And in this team, I don't think that the strongest people. But I don't know if Chiwenga is the one who is in charge of the other stronger people. So that is why I'm always talking about the third force. I believe that there is a third force, but is Chiwenga the one that is in charge of it, like people are alluding to here in all these articles? I do not know. And it's very important for me to say I don't know, because remember, so many generals have died. So the dynamics in the army has changed. And I've given you a list here, which was provided by someone called Majaros, which says who killed the Zimbabwe school generals. If you look at the Zimbabwe.com, you'll see that that post, who killed Zimbabwe's school generals. It's got over 30 school generals who have died. But as I'm saying, where we are going now, the interests of a group of very strong military people and the interests of Mnangagwa and his group are going to clash. And this is going to happen within a very short space of time, within the next 3 years. And someone has to come out on top. The question is, where is Chiwenga in this whole thing? I don't know if Chiwenga is going to be able to take control of the strong guys in the army, because remember, Chiwenga is next in line. There's no question about it. Now, he is next in line in terms of the ZANU-PF hierarchy. The next person who's going to be president is Chiwenga. But how will they make someone else take over? So let's say they want to take Valerio and make him president. How would they do it? So there has to be something that happens in between now and that period for Chiwenga to be replaced or Chiwenga to take over. One of them has to control and grab that thing. It's not going to be handed to anyone. And as I mentioned to you, the issue of small arms is going to play a big part. These guys are collecting these small arms. Is seen in this case of Leonard Matambo, he was acquitted yesterday. I'm not talking about years ago. This was acquitted in court yesterday. Is in today's press. 47 AK-47s. No one can explain where those guns were going. The Zimbabwe National Army did not come to court to provide evidence. So the court case was thrown out. So what is happening? Who is importing those guns? And what happened to Chamisa's case, which Owen Mudha was saying Chamisa is involved in Lighthouse. So you remember I mentioned that that case. You can also go and Google Operation Lighthouse. This was being pinned on Nelson Chamisa, but I don't think Chamisa was responsible. And I've said in the past that these guns did not belong to Chamisa. And also Magaya's part. What was Magaya's part? I've seen Magaya yesterday standing with Scott when they got in Kamabiliat. What is the relationship between Anna Scott, Anna Magaya, and Mnangagwa's side? Is Mnangagwa having his own little team on standby that if something goes wrong, he can defend himself? So all those things are things that needs to be looked at. But what I know is that in the Zimbabwe military, there's no consensus to stand behind Mnangagwa's third term and to stand behind a prolonged situation that we have now. There's no consensus, and there are very, very strong guys in the Zimbabwe military who've got their own separate strategy to Mnangagwa. They don't have the same strategy that Mnangagwa has got. Mnangagwa's strategy is based on his family, but there are people who've got a 30-year strategy on how to take Zimbabwe forward. Why they're not acting, I don't know. How they'll act, I don't know. But I know that the question is, where is Chiwenga in this whole thing? And at which point is the clash between Mnangagwa's side and the guys who want to have their own strategy going to happen within the next 3 years? It's going to happen, and we're going to see it playing out in the open. So you can go and have a look at all those newspapers. NewsHawks has been covering these stories. And I think this story was in the news there. I'm not sure of the corruption. And let's see what happens. We also don't know what has happened to the other commanders who were fired. So basically, we've got about 10 people, 10 commanders and generals who have been fired over the past 3 months. And people that have been moved around. You can look at the NewsHawks, they've got all those stories there. And the editor who was writing those stories says he's now been put under surveillance by the Zimbabwe military. He's called Owen Gagare. He used to work for Amabunga in South Africa. And I think he works for Dumisani Mlea's newspaper in Zimbabwe. If I'm not mistaken, I had a long trip with Dumisani Mlea. So I don't know, I stand to be corrected here. When I went to Namibia, I took a ride with one of the journalists, and we happened to sit next to each other for the whole trip for like 2 days. So I don't know if it's Dumisani Mlea or not. I would just have to confirm. So that would be interesting if that was him. Yeah, but it's been a long time. That was 2005 or 2006 when I was still in Zimbabwe working at the bank. So let's look at other news. I want to always start with Chamisa tweets. Let me see if I've got the Chamisa tweets today, and I will look at other stories. But you must keep in mind that we are entering a very dangerous period, and this dangerous period is going to be controlled by the military. And if Mnangagwa persists with the third term, I wouldn't be surprised if the military guys just decide to take him out. That is a possibility. If ED just continues with his third term thing, some people may just wake up and be very unhappy about the whole thing and say, let's take him out. And that can happen. Because as I said to you, I get a sense that Mnangagwa is not the strongest person like we think. I don't think he acts as brazenly as he wants. And I think there's a reason for that. Now let's look at Chamisa, a country in turmoil. Zimbabwe is a sad case of disintegrating nation upon broken families. Not a single family is without a member living in the diaspora. This is an indicator of the magnitude of the prevailing political decay and economic crisis. The politics is broken. The economy is in tatters. We've lost our best and finest brains. Our most productive and active force is productive and active in other lands to the detriment of our national interests. Our national pride has been severely undermined. Our collective dignity has been assaulted. The damage socially and economically is dire. Our social fabric is torn apart. The solution is finding each other and collectively resolving the disputed national processes, including the 2023 general elections. Zimbabwe must return to majority rule and consensus popular government. The true will of Zimbabwean citizens must be respected. Citizens unite. So that is Nelson Chamisa. And I always want to read the tweets by Chamisa. Very interesting tweets. And I do agree with Nelson Chamisa that the dialogue is essential. It needs to happen because SADC is going to eventually be the solution in Zimbabwe, whether you like it or not, or whether Mnangagwa likes it or not. The final solution in Zimbabwe is going to be with SADC processes, because SADC is delaying. They might end up being forced to intervene when someone has been killed. And this is not the best thing. What SADC needs to do is they need to be proactive and deal with the situation in Zimbabwe. There is a bad situation in Zimbabwe which is affecting people. So I think SADC needs to move. And also Chamisa, when he looks at the diaspora, and I always say this to these guys, the diaspora is not a homogeneous thing. So I'm sitting here in my house in Cape Town. Someone is sitting in East London. Someone is sitting in Gauteng. Someone is sitting in KZN. Someone is sitting in UK. Diaspora is not one thing. So Chamisa needs to find a way of putting the diaspora under him. And that means they have to rebuild the structures in the diaspora. So that is not negotiable for Nelson Chamisa. The CCC and whatever is going to form is a diaspora party. Morgan Tsvangirai's support was based on the diaspora. So Chamisa needs to move on the diaspora. And if you saw, we are raising funds. I'm going to be traveling to the UK from the 1st of March to the last day of March. We need to raise 5,000 for that trip. So if you've seen that advert that we put out, I need your guys' support in terms of us getting out in the diaspora to meet people and talk and to do a lot of events. I've heard people asking what is the purpose of the engagement. So Zimbabwe Media is on 14 years now. So we need to now start to obviously literally meet people and have chats and talk and engage and move to a point where we start to see when people go back home, where are we going to be? Because people are going to go home. Zimbabwe is going to go home. Most people here in the diaspora are wasting their time. So on average, Zimbabweans are now living only for bills. That is in the UK, in South Africa. Things are not well in these countries. And Zimbabwe has got such an opportunity for Zimbabweans to do well in that country. So that's why I'm saying it's not ideal for Zimbabweans to stay in the diaspora. And Chamisa needs to be leading that process. Then I want to share a video here, a picture of Mafume. Mafume was with Jere at the National Sports Stadium. So that is the only picture that I've got today of Jere and Mafume. And they are looking at the construction taking place. The stadium is collapsed and it's no longer fit for what I can call international matches. Then I want to quickly look at any newspapers that is out. There is a story in the Bulawayo Chronicle, one of my favorite newspapers. And the Chronicle is saying that 21 bodies were found at the construction site. So there is 21 bodies that were found at the construction site. And these bodies were exhumed and they were taken for reburial. But this story is just coming out. So you can go and have a look at that story in the Chronicle newspapers. It's not people who were killed by during the Kukuraundi. That's what the government is saying. So have a look at that story in the Chronicle. A very, very interesting story. It's the only story that I found to be new today. Then I want to look at other newspapers. The Herald newspaper was not out when I started this broadcast. So these newspapers tend to take a bit of time to come out. So it's not yet out. In fact, it's out now. But let's see what's there. Let me take you through the Herald newspaper very quickly. And I've already given you a story in the H Metro, which is the fact that the military, the weapons that were linked to Nelson Chamisa have not, the guy has been acquitted. So that guy, nothing's going to happen to him. In the Herald newspaper, we've got Mnangagwa. So Mnangagwa was in Masvingo. This is where all this drama happened. Where Mohad stood up and said 2030 Mnangagwa Chipo. And then there are also some crazy people who were talking there. I saw that guy was on fired from ZANU, the former minister. Yeah, so basically this is the Herald newspaper. There's not much which is standing out besides the Mnangagwa 2030 Mnangagwa Chipo issue. Then we got Kama Billiard going to Yada. Yada is Magaya's team. And I know for a fact that Yada is broke. They've got no money. So very soon, Kama Billiard will have to move from here. These guys don't have money at all. They won't be able to pay him. And I don't know where Magaya is going to get money. Magaya is broke. So he's got no money at all. Let's look at other newspapers. I'm not rushing over this. He is broke. Magaya has not had money for a very, very long time. He's in court with the Israelis. He's in court with the Chinese over botched mining deals. So he's got no money. And maybe Scott is going to pay Kama Billiard. But there's no money in terms of Magaya. Magaya's got nothing. He's probably going to lose most of his properties because his church is mortgaged to the Israelis. When he took the 1 million loan, is 5 million, 1 million, he mortgaged his property, but he didn't register the bond. That is the story there. So it's crazy. I don't know how they're going to pay Kama Billiard. The only reason I could think of why Kama Billiard would go to Zimbabwe is if he's got health issues and injury issues, then he just wants to play. Because in South Africa, I don't think he can keep up with the bills. He was the most highly paid player in South Africa at 800,000 a week. A week or month? A week. That is how much he was paying. He was paid. I think about 800,000 at Sundowns. They were paying the highest amount of money in South African football. And then he lost his spot. He stopped scoring and they threw him out. So I think he's in Zimbabwe because of that. And it's a good idea for him to go back home when he still can. Most of the other soccer players who are here are destitute, doing odd jobs and not having any interesting life at all. So these are the stories. Let's look at the comments and then we'll wrap it up. Mnangagwa Dube. Gambabo, do you think the military of Zimbabwe is strong? I doubt very much because very strong they could have sorted the situation. Right, Mkoma, I want to explain to you what my sense is. And this is my sense from the time when I was in Zimbabwe. I had to deal with a lot of guys from military and intelligence and so forth. So one day I got a call and a guy says to me, Gambabo, why are you in Zimbabwe? Are you not afraid of being killed? So it was an anonymous call. And I said to him, no one is going to kill me because these guys are my brothers. Like, literally, I'm not afraid of being killed by anyone in the Zimbabwean system. And the reason why I'm not afraid is because I said this in a past recording. I know that there is control. So the intelligence system in Zimbabwe has got a central control. So they know, like, everything that's happening now, they are well aware. So if Chamisa's party is being decimated, they are aware. And if Gambabo is moving from here to there, they know everything. So there is central control. So Mnangagwa and his system, they're intact. Everything that they're doing, they're intact. So if they say, don't kill Gambabo, no one is going to kill me. Like if I'm walking in Harare, I'll be safe. I know that nothing is going to happen to me. However, behind the scenes, as I said to you, there are people with a strategy that stretches beyond the period of Mnangagwa. And those are the people whose intentions and actions you don't and cannot predict. So do you understand what I'm saying when I'm saying the military is strong? Don't think Zimbabwe military is made up of yes men. Like everyone is agreeing and doing everything that they agree. There are people with their own strategy there who say, after Mnangagwa is gone, I'm not going to remove him. That's what they want to remove him. But they've got their own plan which says, if Mnangagwa is now gone, we're going to do this. Similar to when Mugabe crossed the line with grace. You remember when Mugabe crossed the line with grace, then they had to act. But Mnangagwa was not there. So you should remember that when Mugabe was removed, Mnangagwa was in Johannesburg. He did not play a part in the removal of Mugabe. So it's not like Mnangagwa was calling and saying, Chindayapa. Mnangagwa was not involved at all. So there are people that are strong enough in the Zimbabwe military to launch a mission and execute it and complete it and have a strategic end result. So they're there. That's why I'm telling you that Zimbabwe military is not a weak thing that is just waiting for Mnangagwa to direct. And that means there is a strategic direction that can be taken and a decision that can be taken to say, let's do this or let's not do this. However, ED has tried to counter these people by putting his own people inside and trying to create their own strategy within and without. That is why you see that there are those weapons that I'm telling you about which are being imported and you don't know who is importing them. There's also collection of money which is happening through robberies and other kind of things that you cannot explain. And then the movements by ED of army officials. Right now, 10 army officials have been moved in the past 3 months. And the fact that people in Mnangagwa's office are saying, don't discuss military issues. So the Zimbabwe military is strong, but there is another layer at the back. And the most dangerous portion about the military is the lower ranks. If someone in the lower ranks can manage to convince quite a large number of people that something needs to happen, those are the most dangerous guys. And I think if you look at what has happened in North Africa, then it's not happening from the top. It's happening from somewhere in between. But you need one person who is senior enough, because a simple and mere soldier does not have a high level view of what's happening. So they cannot politically reason. So if you take a soldier, they don't have the economic, political knowledge and the strategic knowledge to know what to do. That is why they will need someone who is at a bit of a higher rank or the assistance of an outside force. So in North Africa, most of the coups that have taken place are linked to other countries. So there will be a strategist who is sitting outside the country, who commands a junior soldier, and the junior soldier then follows the strategy that has already been laid out for them. So at the moment, what is lacking is that link, that layer that is going to support logistically and also with finance, because this thing, it's a matter of finance, because whoever is going to do that with you, they'll be needing to get paid. So in North Africa, that has been dealt with through meetings that took place before the coups. There were meetings that took place. But in Zimbabwe, I don't believe that the guys will go the route of a coup. They'll go through a more targeted approach. So that is what you're going to see in Zimbabwe. If ED insists on a third term, there's going to be a more targeted approach. And specifically, you will start to see ED being constrained in a certain way. It's very easy because ED has got business interests and family interests in Zimbabwe. So, as I said to you, I don't think he's the strongest guy in the structure. He was put into that structure, which is existing. So there are other stronger people behind the scenes, if they're still alive. So let's go to Mkoma Temba saying this is the beginning of suffering in Zimbabwe. Yes, third term is the worst thing that can ever happen in Zimbabwe. Third term will bring war in Zimbabwe. And it won't be war about between citizens and military. It will be war within ZANU-PF. Third term is the worst thing that ED can do. He must immediately say he's not associated with it. It's a very, very bad idea. And then Mkoma 1 says, CCC kidnapped Chamisa and had his Twitter account. Chamisa will be out within the next few weeks to say what he's planning to do. And I'll keep following what Chamisa is doing. But as I said, the future of Chamisa is in the diaspora. It's not in Zimbabwe. SAD is at the Swiss end. They can't do anything to ED and order ED to do anything. Completely useless. The presidents of SADC are going to show you in August who is boss. You will see what happened to Mnangagwa in August. Mnangagwa is not going to be chairperson of SADC. And the presidents are going to make sure, when they're in Zimbabwe, they will make sure that ED doesn't become president of SADC. That is going to happen. You are going to see that as long as these election issues are not sorted, there's not going to be any Mnangagwa chairmanship of SADC. There's no way that someone who's got a report that says the election was not free and fair can be a president of SADC. That is what you're going to see. I'm going to end with your comment. So who is Mnangagwa's successor? Officially, it's Chiwenga. But Chiwenga is not going to walk into that position. So you're probably going to see, if Mnangagwa is successful, you're going to see Valerio as the president, or another person who is a bit weaker. They'll push him there to the president. Even one of the sons, they can make him a president. ED can do that. He's quite capable of pushing that kind of agenda. But if everything goes according to my prediction, we won't get to 2028. Something's going to happen in between. And that will be the third force. So the third force candidate is going to take over. And if Chiwenga is the third force candidate, that means Chiwenga is going to get in. But I don't think he's the third force candidate. I think it's going to be more like a business person who's going to take over before the 2028 elections. Then we'll go to a transitional sort of period. As I said to you before, Chamisa has been decimated. They've rubbed him out of the political environment. It's going to be very difficult for Chamisa. The next time Chamisa can be a force is the next election, which is 2033, I think. That is when Chamisa is likely to take over. So 2033 or 2038, that is where you're going to see a Chamisa presidency, if he's still in politics, if he plays the diaspora card, and if he goes with the dialogue. So both Chamisa and Mnangagwa, they rely and will depend on the dialogue going successfully. If there's no dialogue, you're going to see something very, very bad happening before 2028, especially if they keep pushing this 2030, this Mnangagwa 2030 Anega Chiripo idea. It's going to anger a lot of people. People don't like someone who overstays when they're visiting. So that is it for today. Let me see if I've got any other stories that I have left here. Okay, I think I've covered everything here. You can go and look at the newspaper here called the NewsHawks. That newspaper has been carrying these stories, but I did not see the link that they're creating. I know they're saying people are moved here, people are moved there. I did not see the link, and I still believe that the third force is going to take over in Zimbabwe. We are going to have a government that is not aligned to CCC, that is not aligned to ZANU-PF for a period of time. But how we get there, that is going to be something very, very interesting. But if ED insists on a 2030 third term, there's going to be a lot of problems for him, and a lot of problems because there are people who won't like it. And as I said, the military guys in Zimbabwe are very, very strong behind the scene. They've got a separate strategy from ED. They do not want to continue under the strategy of ED. So that is what I wanted to say for today. I'll be back tomorrow with other stories. And then over the weekend, we're going to cover the situation in the DRC. It's escalating. And I think yesterday there was a bombing. So let's see what happened. And let's see what is going to happen within the next 2 days. Then we'll look at the DRC issues. Thank you very much, everyone, and a good day to you.